This picture made Yellowstone fans all kinds of nervous at the end of episode 5 of Yellowstone. It came during a teaser for episode 6, and it appears to show John hugging Casey? Tate? Both were really bad options because it spelled doom for the other. Death seemed like a certainty during episode 6 of Yellowstone, and, spoiler alert, death came knocking. It's Billy Dukes, and I'm not going to make you wait forever to find out who died during episode 6 of Yellowstone. In fact, you can find out right now by checking out the time code section below. I'll trade you a like and a subscribe for it. This is a recap video for episode 6 titled Cigarettes, Whiskey, a Meadow, and You. And honestly, there's not a ton to recap and explain, but I do think it's worth setting up next week's first half finale with some more information about how long we'll have to wait until the second half. Second spoiler alert, it's gonna be a long, long time. Episode 6 was a much needed cowboy episode. If you subscribe to this channel, you know that I was really critical after episode 5. I thought it was not enough cowboy stuff and perhaps a little bit too much Beth. She put her crazy away for this 2-day journey, and mostly the show was drama-free. If you're a little bit lost as to what was happening with the cattle, stand by, I have a city boy explanation for it all. Also, we do need to talk about what happened at the Indian reservation because there is a big problem that only a few people seem to understand. Bit of a plot hole for those who love those kinds of things. Part of the reason that we thought that the death that came during episode 6 would be so tragic was the way it was teased.
I do mean everything.
What happened?
That music, the dark-haired person John was hugging, plus Monica's worry about her boys not coming home safe, it all had us fearing the very worst. In reality, this is the person that John was hugging. Huh? Okay, I'll back up.
Sure you got another ride in you?
I'll race your ass up to the top, Governor.
That man's name is Emmett Walsh, and he and John go way back like Cadillac seats. He's the former head of Montana Fishing Game, but more recently he was the one who tried to get Casey to run for governor. This happened early on in season 4. Then he laid low until we saw him as sort of a right-hand man to John as he accepted his bid for the governor. Emmett is important to the Dutton family, as made clear by he and John pairing up to sleep alongside one another under the stars. He's not really all that important to the show, however. And how do I know he's not that important to the show? Well, watch this.
For 139 years, Yellowstone Ranch cattle have grazed these mountains, then gathered and brought here for the annual branding. But one of the cowboys on this drive will not be coming home. Local rancher and former head of Montana Fishing Game died in his sleep last night somewhere in those mountains.
Nobody on this newscast ever says the name of the man who died. Here, watch it again.
For 139 years, Yellowstone Ranch cattle have grazed these mountains, then gathered and brought here for the annual branding. But one of the cowboys on this drive will not be coming home. Local rancher and former head of Montana Fishing Game died in his sleep last night somewhere in those mountains.
Pretty big mistake by a local news team, don't you think? And then there was this reaction from an anchor named Jane.
Wow. Some might question the governor's priorities, but not this news anchor.
Y'all, this would never happen on local news. Still, it was a touching scene in the middle of a really philosophical episode. The woman that we saw John hugging was Emmett's wife, and it was a really humanizing moment. I almost shed a tear for this old couple, and honestly, before today, I hadn't given them 2 consecutive thoughts. Well done, Yellowstone. Well done. My favorite part about this sequence is a few minutes later when we see this. I mean, sure, your husband may have just died, but the Dutton family laid out a pretty good spread, and nobody comes before a good spread. They say time heals all wounds, I guess. Well, you know, time and barbecue chicken. Is more death coming? It doesn't seem likely for episode 7, but an event that may prove to be just as tragic is on the horizon. How do you think this all wraps up? Comment below and remember to continue to be respectful of others. It's appreciated. First, a few rapid-fire happenings from episode 6. Jamie and Sarah Atwood slept together again, and again, and again. And she tried to convince him that she's only sleeping with him because she wants to, not because she's working some sort of angle for market equities. He seems to believe it, even though almost literally nobody watching the show does. Summer and Monica spend some QT together, and Summer proves that she has never peeled a potato before. Beth and Rip make love in a meadow that he'd chosen for their wedding before she decided for a quickie at the end of season 4. And the cattle drive goes really, really well. In fact, better than expected. They're herding them all to get them branded and vaccinated before setting them out to pasture. On one occasion, John says that he wants to set up a picket line, which is essentially a temporary fence made of rope that contains the cattle for a short period of time, overnight or so. Aside from Emmett's death, it was really all a perfect day. Early on, we find out that the President of the United States is going to be showing up at the Broken Rock Reservation. The problem is...
Are you aware of an event?
Right. Chief Rainwater doesn't know anything about this. This is all a power play by Angela Blue Thunder to put her guy in charge of the reservation, but it comes with a bit of a plot hole. Shout out to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram for pointing this out, but when a president goes anywhere, every single detail is planned out. Chief Rainwater wouldn't get anywhere near that stage without a full and complete background check. He would surely know about that. His head of a security wouldn't be allowed anywhere near the stage either. I mean, there's no such thing as last minute with the president. That said, the sequence did provide the only drama during an otherwise blissful episode 6. I thought it went a little too far when the Secret Service started to kill some stray dogs on site. I mean, that doesn't really happen, does it? I don't really know how this plot line is going to intersect with John Dutton's plot line. The governor has decided not to meet with the President of the United States, which the former governor says is a very, very bad idea. This sequence, and really the whole entire episode, just sort of reinforces the brand of the Dutton family and of Yellowstone. Next week is our last episode for a while, possibly until summer. Talking to the Dutton Rules podcast, links below, Breck and Merrill shared that the second half won't begin filming until March. Guys, it took 6 months to film, edit, and present part 1 of this season, so we'll pick this story back up in the summer, next fall. As far as how this half ends, I think Sarah Atwood has the answer.
The future of the cattle industry is no future. Your state will be on the hook for around $4 billion. Sounds like an impeachable offense to me.
Yes, it does.
It's her goal to get John Dutton out of office, and he's done a lot that could get him impeached. The wolves that his cowboys killed earlier this season are still a problem that hasn't gone away. Jamie could let slip any number of secrets, as he seems inclined to do lately. It's kind of funny, Beth promised not to let him out of her sight, but he's been running rogue for several episodes now. She's really not doing her job, is she? I'll also point out that he's not really doing his job. I'm talking about John Dutton. Real talk. It's been a couple of weeks in Yellowstone time, and he's canceled every meeting and appointment and focused on things at his home. I think you call that an absentee governor. If he were to be impeached, the lieutenant governor would presumably take over. I don't think that's Jamie's role quite yet. As far as I know, he's still state's attorney general, but maybe he'll wiggle his way into a lieutenant governor role within the next hour of television. Either way, I believe that the threat of impeachment is real, but I'd be shocked if it happens next week. More likely, we'll find John knee-high in cow doo-doo, figuratively and literally. I'm Billy Dukes for Taste of Country. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing.